Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows. In the last part, we took care of the main two stages of the Tower of Fate, and now it's time for the final boss. With that said, like as Shovel Knight, we have a little bit of a level before the final boss fight, even though it's relatively insubstantial. We're gonna start off with sort of an equivalent to the Zelda Living Tiles room. We got all these blocks that are gonna just come at us one group at a time, just gotta try and dodge them and not get knocked back into the lava. And after that, we're just going to do a small platforming section that is really easy as Plague Knight, thanks to the bomb burst. And you want to make sure when we get to that platforming section down here, we actually want to head to the left, because the boss fight's to the right. But to get the final 5 note sheets, and thus reach 100% of the save file, we need to grab the 5 of them over here, over this lava. As Shovel Knight, you kind of have to edge yourself over those platforms to find out where the pits actually are, but as you can see as Plague Knight, you can just kind of fly over them in that regard, and it's pretty easy to get past them. And the other reason you want to do this is because you can just get some health restore over here in case you're trying to do this stage deathless and you took too much damage during the block room for some reason. I recommend bringing out the float or lob casings again, as they're pretty good against the first phase of the final boss, but you're going to be doing a lot more switching here than basically anywhere else in the game, I find. If only because situations change more frequently than most other boss fights, to put it frankly. I really like levels like this when they're done right, and I think this is one that's done right. It's nice for building up the atmosphere and tension before the final boss. Mega Man 2 does this as well, even though I think that level itself can be rather annoying just because of how much damage the acid does before the Wily fight. Once you've reached the candles, there's no more sudden bottomless pits to worry about, thankfully, and there's just the final checkpoint for you to hit. Let's get this party started. Plague Knight. Ah, so your fool's errand draws to a close. You know what I'm after, Enchantress. And how important this is. Do not speak to me of importance. Your quest is folly. You'll never be anything more than you are. So, you've come to rob me of my essence, to shape the world to your whim. Essence is insignificant to me, but you, my servant, must be reminded of your place. My place is by Mona's side, and you won't stop me. If you insist on dancing with death, then I shall take the lead. Enchantress is a bit of a rough fight for Shovel Knight, and it's even harder in some regards for Plague Knight, only because she alternates very often between being on the top third and bottom third of the screen. Plague Knight does have more ways to hit her beneath the screen, but the problem with that is that also means you have more ways to get rid of your own platforms. And she does occasionally do a gigantic firewave attack that restores the dust blocks we're on. But you need to be very careful about how much you destroy and how much she destroys while trying to hit you like that, so that you don't end up screwing yourself over. It's harder to screw yourself over as Plague Knight admittedly, because Bomb Burst means you can reach the far ends of the platform probably, especially with the Float Burst in particular. But you need to be careful. I believe the further you get into her health bar, the more she'll actively restore at once. But that's also the counter to the fact that the further you get into her health bar, the more she'll actively destroy at once, because she starts doing large diagonal sweeps with her fireballs that can just destroy a ton of the platforming space you got here. She's not inherently dangerous. The bigger threat here, honestly, is probably just the threat of the bombless pit beneath you at all times. But hitting her without the lob casing can definitely be a trial, especially with how fast she can admittedly move around. But if you use the component powder well enough and can place your shots, she's not the worst boss fight. Honestly, I think the hardest Shovel Knight boss fight is probably Spectre of Torment overall, but that's just because of how much of a threat instant death is in that particular boss fight. Bigger cards maybe, but for different reasons than most of the other final bosses. Killing you would be a waste of my energy, and of a powerful alchemist. I'll make use of you yet, Plague Knight. Take what you will. Make your potion. But what you truly desire will always elude you. No! Stop your assault! Plague Knights, look! I brought someone. Plague Knight, come to your senses. You don't need to go through with this. Mona! You don't understand! I was too weak to say before, but now I can show you I'm good enough! Black Knight told me everything. You don't need a potion to win me over. You already have! What? But it's too late! I already defeated the Enchantress and began the final distillation! I was too late. I must go after her. You two, touch nothing until I return. Where is all this power coming from? This wasn't in our notes. The essences are reacting unpredictably. Watch out! Final boss, phase 2, is a mirror match against our Shadow, the literal Plague of Shadows, I suppose. And it's more or less just the Plague Knight boss fight from when you were playing as Shovel Knight. He makes the vats, he throws the orbs, he has a couple of new attacks, and I think he can send some projectiles along the floor whenever he hits the ground. And I think you can destroy enough of the platform to create a bottomless pit again, but don't quote me on that because I don't think I've ever actively done it. It's a very quick fight if you use component powder and place your shots correctly, but don't underestimate the danger of it, because the range that he has is just like the range you have, in that it's pretty easy to get hit here, especially if you don't have a lot of health or you ran out of tonics. Phase 3 is against the Corrupted Essence, which is honestly one of the easiest final bosses in the entire collection. The thing we need to hit is its tongue to do some actual damage, but in order to make it open for damage, we need to destroy the core, sort of like Alpha from Mega Man Battle Network 3. The component powder is pretty good for this just because you got that lingering hitbox, and when the boss is actively trying to attack you, you can shoot some projectiles, kind of tackle into you directly, bounce the main body and the cauldron separately trying to hit you, and it can also create, gels that look like Mona and have a pretty big explosion radius to them, so you have to be careful of that attack in particular. With that said, it doesn't do enough damage in a lot of cases, and if you can place your shots correctly by using the lob casings with the big boom, you can take this thing's health down pretty quickly. Easiest final boss out of the collection? Yes, but admittedly you go through a slightly harder campaign in some regards to get to it, so it all kind of balances out. Plus, I love this thing's design. You did it! The reaction is stabilized! Wow, there it is. The ultimate potion. Well, are you gonna drink it now? I don't think I need it anymore, Mona. But we must take it with us, it's all we've been working for. My future as an alchemist is riding on it. Wait. I just got an idea. You know how much energy is contained in this potion, right? Yeah, this much boom could easily level the whole tower. And be seen for miles in all directions. Mona, I love the way you think. The bigger the explosion, the better the alchemist. Those bumbling townsfolk would throw us a parade. We can practice alchemy anywhere we want. We wouldn't have to hide away anymore. But you're holding a potion that can give you anything you could ever want. Are you sure about this? I already have everything I could ever want. Let's blow this joint.
You're back, you're alive! Wonderful! I'm going to assume that explosion was your handiwork.
Yep, that crusty old tower was an eyesore anyway.
Amazing! I didn't get any rocks thrown at me today. I think the townspeople are actually grateful!
Listen, Plague Knight, I know you made all these potions and blew everything up, all to impress me. I'm so flattered, really I am. I have to make a confession, though. You're not my type. I'm so sorry. You see, I've fallen for a real man.
Guys, the villagers are all in the juice bar, and they want to buy us around! Let's go!
That sounds lovely, but I think we'll catch up later. There's science to be done. Mona? Let's get started, Plague Knight. There's no telling what we'll brew up next.
That's Plague of Shadows. I think out of the 4 campaigns, this is the one I'm the most split on, because I really like the characterization going on here at Plague Knight and everyone he's involved with. But as I've covered probably relatively too extensively throughout the LP, I think the fact that most of the level design is just reused from Shovel Knight's own campaign does a disservice to Plague Knight's own abilities. If they had done this idea where he was closer to what Spectre and King Knight would be, where he got completely reworked stages to work around his abilities, maybe even doing stages in a different order, like you do in those other 2 campaigns, they could do some really interesting stuff with this. But it just comes across as the black sheep of the 4 campaigns because of that. And not for nothing, and I covered this slightly earlier in the LP, I think Yacht Club's even partially aware of that themselves, because I think this is still the only one of the 4 campaigns you can't buy separately. You can buy Shovel of Hope on its own, you can buy Spectre, Torment, and King of Cards on their own. I don't think you can do that for this. I think you can only get this, at this point, by playing the Treasure Trove. Which, at the end of the day, is probably the most worthwhile purchase for it all, just because there's so much game there, but it is definitely a little weird. And looking at it as the lens as originally just a neat unlockable they added about a year later, it is really awesome, but it definitely has its weak points. I do appreciate how much you can do with Plague Knight's arsenal, though, once you max it out. I do wish you had more levels after the fact you can max it out to use all those tools to their effectiveness, max effectiveness, rather. But that's partially why New Game Plus is there, and, well, I'm not doing that, but at least it's there. The next time we reunite with Shovel Knight, we're going to be tackling the 3rd campaign, which is probably my personal favorite next to the Shovel Knight campaign, Spectre of Torment. So look forward to that. That one is interesting. The next 2 campaigns definitely are slightly different in tone to Shovel and Plague Knights, but that's partially intentionally just because of what stories they're telling in particular. With that said, towards the end of the credits, we actually get some really cool stuff. They showcase the current world record holder for that campaign in the speedrun category, which I find really nice. And they also detail your total hauls from every level, the total deaths, as well as how much you spent, just because it's nice to have those kind of stats around. And I think some of them might be tied to achievements in some of the campaigns, particularly in Shovel Knight's own, but don't quote me on that. It's been a little bit since I went for that trophy. That was like 2018-ish, 2019, maybe even prior to that I went for that trophy set. With that said, the next Yacht Club Games game we're covering isn't Spectre of Torment. There's another project they published over the last couple of years that I figured I'm gonna tackle next, just because I really like that game despite its own problems, and I think it needs to be talked about more in some form. You know, I think it did relatively well. Also, I'm trying to remember, how long was this playthrough in gameplay time? Like, almost, yeah, just close to 4 hours. Imagining this game done in an hour and a half just hurts my brain, gameplay-wise for that trophy, ugh. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. And remember, if you're ever going to dance a waltz, make sure you remember to make sure that you practice, and that your dance partner is someone you trust with all of your heart.